overseas to South Korea, where authorities took a Christian pastor into custody in September, reportedly on minor election law charges. They've held him for almost 3 months, claiming he's a flight risk and that he could destroy evidence. CBN Asia correspondent Lucille Talusan was with his family when he finally appeared in court and has this report.
Pastor Hyun-bo Son's wife, children, and grandchildren eagerly waited his first court hearing, nearly 2 months after his arrest. They were joined by elders and members of his church, hoping for a favorable outcome. His legal counsel, Tae-Kyu Kim, says the charge of violating election law is minor. Plus, he argues Pastor Son had a right to interview a candidate during a church service, which didn't break the law.
He should be guaranteed by the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion.
Outside, Christian supporters prayed and rallied during the hearing demanding justice.
And they are really questioning the way that his case is being handled. They say that it's a very minor case and they're wondering why he is not able to post bail.
Although video recording was prohibited inside the courtroom, CBN News witnessed what transpired. It was an emotional moment for the family as Pastor Son was brought in. During the 30-minute session, he never once turned toward his family. His son, Hyun-bo Son, believes he could not bear being seen in prison clothes.
Prosecution keeps delaying the submission of evidence, and this feels like it's going on forever.
Hyun-bo Son believes there's a hidden agenda behind his father's prosecution. He points to how the pastor mobilized 2 million people to oppose the proposed comprehensive anti-discrimination law, which critics say could criminalize preaching against homosexuality and restrict religious speech.
My father is a pastor who stood against the Gay Rights Act, including the gay agenda in the curriculum for children. I couldn't believe that he was imprisoned for that as a pastor.
At the second hearing on November 25, prosecutors requested a year in prison for Pastor Son, an unprecedented punishment for the charge. They claim he influenced congregants and undermined election fairness. Pastor Son responded,
"As a pastor, I had no choice but to speak against the superintendent of education candidate who promoted the comprehensive anti-discrimination bill, and against President Lee Jae-myung, who vowed to appoint sexual minorities to a 30% of government positions. My remarks were made during worship. If this trial restricts religious liberty and freedom of expression, it will be a great loss to this nation."
December 2, Republic of Korea President Lee Jae-myung ordered cabinet ministers to review the alleged separation of church and state violations, citing cases where religious foundations have intervened in politics. He is also considering disbanding such church foundations, moves that could further complicate Pastor Son's release. For the Republic of Korea's allies, especially the United States, these developments raise serious concerns. The US-ROK alliance is rooted not only in military cooperation, but in shared democratic values, including freedom for faith communities to operate without fear of political retaliation. Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Busan, South Korea.
Thank you, Lucille. Gordon, in previous reporting, I remember you speaking out pretty forcibly on this case.
It's of great concern to me because Korea has long been an ally of the United States and has long stood for democracy in the region and for freedom of speech, freedom of religion. But here you have a sex agenda being pushed, and not just pushed, but enforced in draconian ways. For a pastor within his church to interview candidates for that school board. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's an election for a school board on how children in Korea are going to be educated. For that to somehow be an election law violation or somehow unconstitutional, that they're examining the separation of church and state, going to prohibit anyone who has a role in Christianity from participating in politics. It is absolutely incredible to me. Our government should do everything in its power to put pressure on Korea. No, you cannot do this. You cannot be part of the free world and have this kind of action within your own country. Elections should be free and open. Information should be able to be given to anyone in any context. And especially within churches. That it's mind-boggling to me what they're doing. Now, to add to it, you interview a candidate for office, and in this case, it's for the school superintendent. So you interview a candidate in your church. What does the government do? They arrest you. They put you in jail, deny you bond. He's been imprisoned since that arrest and no possibility of being released. And then the prosecutors are saying you need to spend a year in jail. What does that do to every other pastor in the country? The whole effect of this is to try to eliminate free speech within the churches. Now, if you think that somehow this can't come to the United States, please think again. I've heard it in the public square right here in America, that somehow or other it's unconstitutional for a pastor to speak about an election. That is incredible to me because the Constitution guarantees free speech. It guarantees the free exercise of religion. And for Americans to voice that somehow it's unconstitutional shows you how far we've gone from our founding principles. As church members, as believers, we need to stand for our rights as citizens because we have the same right as any other citizen. If you're going to say an atheist has more rights than a Christian, well, that's not America anymore. So let's stand for what we believe in. Let's be very vocal in the public square.